very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines
most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. Let's look at the latest developments on Libya now. The United Nations Security Council has voted unanimously for sanctions against Muammar al-Gaddafi and the people closest to him. In Libya itself, Gaddafi continues to lose his grip on power, even in his stronghold of Tripoli, where police have abandoned parts of the capital. Reports coming out of Libya's third largest city suggest Misrata is now in the hands of opposition supporters, and they're negotiating with soldiers to switch sides. Meanwhile, in the east of the country, which has been out of Gaddafi's power for a week, Libya's former justice minister has declared he's going to help form an interim government based in Benghazi. Well, this is what the US ambassador to the United Nations Security Council had to say about the UN resolution.
Well, we have, as a Security Council today, imposed tough and binding measures to prevent the flow of arms in and out of Libya, to freeze the assets of the leadership who are committing these atrocities, to prevent the travel of those same people and those that are supporting them. These are all very specific and concrete measures designed to end the violence and enable the people of Libya, as I said in the Security Council, to continue to be able to express themselves freely and now without violence.
Well, Libya's deputy ambassador to the UN, who has now turned his back on Gaddafi, described the regime as fascist.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility. It goes without saying that this resolution represents moral support for our people who are resisting before the firing which has been imposed on them by the regime. It is an essential point in the position of the international community on the occasion of the carnage we are witnessing today in Libya. I have in mind here an attempt to protect civilians. This resolution will be a signal in order to put an end to this fascist regime.
One of the reasons why world leaders can be a little more outspoken is that their citizens are now outside the country. But the evacuations are far from easy. Dan Nolan now has the details of just one of them by the British government. Dan.
Sammy, this was a mission cloaked in secrecy, and the British government is still providing very limited details of exactly what happened. The official government line is that 150 workers were rescued from, quote, desert locations south of Benghazi. Media reports indicate that airfields at Nafura and Amal may have been used. After picking up the stranded workers, the planes flew on to Malta, where they landed late last night. Now, there's also reports the two British Air Force planes, they were C-130 Hercules cargo aircraft, had been flying in Libyan airspace without permission. As you can imagine, those rescued were very relieved to be out of Libya and in the safety of Malta. They wouldn't confirm more media reports that the SAS, or Special Forces, had been involved in the mission, but they did provide an indication of just how desperate people are to get out.
There was scheduled to be 65, but in the end there was about 130 got on.
Really?
Yeah.
And
we were sitting in the aisles. It was very cramped, but we were just glad to be out of there and getting on the flights.
With all these workers evacuating, most of Libya's oil facilities are pumping just a fraction, some operating at about 10% of their full capacity. And there's still hundreds of British foreign workers, as well as other nationalities, still stranded at these desert camps around the oil fields. Some who've already been rescued say another military operation is being planned to pick up the rest.
As I said, there's still people in the desert, so I can't say too much. I can't say where I came from, etc., etc. Because the guys down there are still doing an excellent job to gather all the guys together and get them evacuated.
Back to you, Sammy.
Thanks so much, Dan. Well, protesters are gathering in Bahrain for another opposition march on Sunday. It follows a rally in the capital on Saturday night where the country's opposition leader addressed thousands of supporters. Hassan Mshayma called for the government to respond to the people's demands for far-reaching reforms. Well, one of the people in that square is Mohammed Al-Masqati from the Bahrain Youth Society for Human Rights. He joins me now on the phone. The government has released some political prisoners. It has removed troops from the streets. Is the human rights situation now improving?
Actually, the human rights situation is not improving. Of release some of political prison, because still there is a political prison inside jail. They get life sentence. Some of them get 3 years sentence. So still the human rights situation is not improving, and still no one start an investigation about torture, how these people get bruising in their body, how they get beaten inside the jail. So it's still we asking for investigation. We're asking for what happened in the few days ago.
All right, so you're calling for people to join this protest plan today to force the government to launch an investigation to release all political prisoners. Will that be enough, or do you see that there cannot be real human rights in the country unless you have at least some sort of constitutional limits on the monarchy?
Actually, this is not enough for people, and this is not enough for human rights organizations. Because if we're asking for an investigation, we're asking for a new constitution, so we can actually bring all officials to the trial. Now we cannot do that. Actually, there is a law prevent us to bring all the officials to the trial. So we're asking for a new constitution. We're asking for something giving to the people their rights, and giving the human rights organization rights to, and allow them to bring all the officials to trials. And the people are asking a new constitution also to be sure that all torture not back again.
All right, as we know, and I think as we're looking at pictures, a prominent opposition figure, Hassan Al-Mshayma, has returned to Bahrain. Will that perhaps toughen the demands and the stance of protesters in the square where you are now?
Actually, people yesterday are very happy that Mr. Hassan Mshayma back, because they thought that he will take their demand seriously, because some people, their demand to sit down the regime, some people, their demand to sit down the government. But who will sit down the regime, they asking the Hassan Mshayma to take their demand and continue protesting against the regime, and asking him to continue working with them. Hassan Mshayma said today is not day of the politician. Today is the day of people. So he actually will take all the protester demand.
It certainly is the day for the protesters on the streets around the roundabout. Thanks so much, Mohammed Al-Masqati. Well, in Egypt, presidential terms may be limited to 8 years. That's one of the proposed changes to the constitution that will be put to a referendum ahead of elections later this year. Meanwhile, the ruling military council has apologized after security forces beat protesters during overnight demonstrations in Cairo. Thousands demonstrated in Tahrir, or Liberation Square, on Friday, calling for a faster implementation of reforms. The military council's ordered the immediate release of all those arrested and stressed it did not and would not issue orders to attack protesters.
First of all, we apologize to the youth of the revolution. If we arrested one or several individuals by mistake, then we are sorry. I hope that there will not be any further gatherings that will involve those thugs and lawbreakers. Our youth is rational and well informed and will not be fooled by misleading information that circulates on Facebook.
Ireland's main opposition party is all set to form the next government. The ruling Fianna Fáil party is facing its worst defeat in nearly 80 years after it was blamed for the economic hardship many voters are now facing. Prime Minister in waiting, Enda Kenny, is insisting economic stability will be his first priority. Well, in New Zealand, the mayor of Christchurch says at least a third of all buildings must be demolished and rebuilt after Tuesday's earthquake. Officials also say serious questions need to be asked about why some of them collapsed. 147 people died in the quake. More than 200 are still missing. Survivors have been attending Sunday services at church. The countdown has begun for the 83rd Annual Academy Awards. Outside the Kodak Theatre in Los Angeles, the traditional red carpet is ready for the influx of A-list talent. Rob Reynolds takes us through the list of nominees.
Final preparations are underway for Hollywood's biggest show. This year, there are no blue-skinned space aliens and just one special effects blockbuster in the Best Picture category. Dramas take center stage. Here's the list.
What'll I call you? Your Royal Highness.
The King's Speech is the story of an accidental monarch's struggle with stuttering and self-doubt. The film stars Colin Firth, who is also nominated for Best Actor.
We really need to relax.
Black Swan harrowingly portrays a prima ballerina's artistic triumph and simultaneous descent into madness. Natalie Portman is a front-runner for Best Actress.
This is something I just never allow.
In The Kids Are All Right, a lesbian couple's teenage children contact their biological father, nearly destroying the family. Annette Bening has a Best Actress nomination. James Franco finds himself literally stuck between a rock and a hard place in 127 Hours, a graphic survival story directed by Danny Boyle. Best Actor nominee Franco also hosts this year's Oscar broadcast. Westerns are among the most venerable of movie genres. In True Grit, Best Actor nominee Jeff Bridges is a whiskey-swilling, syllable-swallowing, straight-shooting lawman who helps a young girl track down the bad guy who killed her father.
Who are you?
The ruthless digital frontier is examined in The Social Network. Jesse Eisenberg's channeling of unlikable Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg earned him a Best Actor nomination. In the special effects-heavy film Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio dabbles in the stuff that other people's dreams are made of. Winter's Bone depicts a teenage girl's wretched journey through impoverished, meth-addled rural Missouri in search of her no-good drug-dealing daddy.
I'll find him.
20-year-old Jennifer Lawrence's portrayal of the tough-as-nails teen earned her a Best Actress nomination.
New toys! Yeah!
Pixar's Toy Story 3 rounds out the Best Picture nominations, with wisecracking playthings fleeing the garbage truck in search of a child's love. The animated feature was the top-grossing 2010 film worldwide. Also nominated for Best Actor, Javier Bardem in the Spanish-language film Beautiful. Nicole Kidman in Rabbit Hole and Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine are in the running for Best Actress awards. 2010 was the biggest box office year in history, according to the Motion Picture Association, with worldwide ticket sales topping a record $31.8 billion. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Hollywood.